So there's nothing special from my side, but we can talk on whatever infos you need.
Yeah, I wrote a mail for you today about
yeah. So
what
we could.
for now. Yeah.
This is Alexei speaking.
No, it's Vadim. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I hear.
Okay.
I was.
So I have notched all changes, all in staging now, and working all except that we can't parse files for now. And today we plan to manage it with Alexander.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so privacy policy recording. Participation in the meeting indicates you consent to being included in the meeting recording. Yes, I consent. What do I do now? Privacy policy. Teams privacy.
Hi guys.
Hello. Okay. Seems it's okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So maybe we. I'm sorry. I'm not yet really here. Maybe we just take the usual round. So we start with Alexander and Wasil from the development, and Vadim tells us about the deployment, and then me and Alexei go to the other project where we do the use cases. I'm not saying that we will never do use cases in the regulatory parser, but it's at the moment not a prior. So I haven't done yet the data example for the new change request, but I had another chance to speak with Jonas, and he likes the direction we go, and but I cannot deliver the new change request. So Alexander and Wasil, yesterday we decided you're doing a number of things on the old version, so that then Vadim can prepare the demo for Jonas. So what is the status, Alexander and Vasil? What keeps you busy today? What are you doing?
And today I will be work with Vadim with files system, because we need to have the ability and clicks on button start and can parse the document, because at the moment we do not have it in the remote address.
Yeah, I think it's the main priority for today.
Okay, good. So what is the status of how we solved that? I've seen the input from Andrew. I've seen Vadim telling that yes, he's thinking about it, but I haven't really seen an email saying this is the architecture we do. Did I miss an email?
No, I didn't vote about architecture, but we want to use Git for now.
Okay.
For predefined file system, because we don't need to give ability for user to upload files for now through the application. I mean, so I think the Git could be a good idea here.
So the questions I asked about what we should be able, can everything be done with Git, or do we need something in addition?
I'm still not sure about some file storages because it's if you want to have file versions to have some history, Git is good here, but for far perspective, I'm not sure that it is a great idea.
Yeah, we need or use Git or doing something else as Git.
Oh, so it's either or. So one question from Git, you're typically, replicating the repository. So so our software is now replicating the repository. Where is it replicating it to? Does it have a local file system, or do we have an in-memory file system, or what does it do?
We will use Git as a file system, and then Alexander from application will use it, as I understand,
Yeah, but Alexander, what are you doing if we have all our files in the Git now, okay? And now your application is taking them out. So does it first make a local clone of the repository? And if it does it, where does it write it? Normally I have a file system and I clone to my file system. You agree?
Mhm.
What is your application doing? Or is it directly accessing the file in the Git, one after another?
That's his main question. I don't know how to do it.
For now, Alexander using his local file system on his machine.
Okay, so then, but we want that everything runs when, remotely.
Yeah, we want to use the same approach, but neither using local files, we use it from Git repository. So when we want to add some new files, we just
You add
push
them directly into the repository
yeah.
if you want to add. But what if you want to read? Do you read them directly, or do you first do a checkout of the full repository in some version? I mean, are you reading? How do you access the Git? File by file, or do you take out the full repository?
We don't do it for now, so it's like we need to implement this feature.
Okay, but what is the plan? How will you implement it? Will your software check out the whole repo, or will it check out one file after another? What is the idea? I mean, if you don't have the idea yet, then it's fine. But
Yeah, I think we should discuss it with Alexander
yes,
because I'm actually
yes. You. That's what I want. That you discuss and that you have ideas and yes, I assume that if we assume that we run on Kubernetes then has is like on Kubernetes we can have either Linux or Windows nodes, and both Linux and Windows nodes have a file system. No, so yes, maybe we should just do there what you would normally do locally, and then when you are not using it like productively, but more in development mode and testing mode, you can, instead of checking out to the remote machine, you can check out to the local machine and look at everything, which will simplify the testing, the manual testing. I mean, of course, then the automated testing will again check out remotely a certain status, do tests and compare, maybe even compare two different versions. Maybe you have a version that's how it should look before and the version how it should look afterwards. And then yeah, okay. Yeah, we it's we don't need to give a final answer now, but you are doing something now that will allow the demonstration of the system to Jonas. So will Jonas be able to add and manipulate files on his own?
no, we just
Have predefined ones.
we
Okay.
just discussing that he can just parse from files we predefine here
Okay, yeah.
without uploading for now,
Okay,
because
yeah.
it's not really a good idea to use Git for this. So
Yeah.
yeah,
But of course, one of the next functionality should be that we can add a file, define our own regapps, to add them, change them, see what happens.
About
So
what happens, you want to see what happens in the file, or just you want to see what this file was changed, but not
no,
important what is the.
no, I could imagine that Jonas wants to do the following. He has a certain kind of input file, and we did the parsing all correct. Now, in order to show us what he wants to achieve next, he is going to manipulate the input file and then explain us how he would like to have it parsed. He would even like to try out how we can change the parser definition and then see how the look and feel is of that. And then we're going to improve the user interface, and then we're going to improve the ability to parse, and then we're going to add a number of files that have these properties. But we should be able to start playing with the tool, try it out, using it. So it's the idea of the tool. If you say use cases, you're adding a new file source. Use
okay.
cases,
How do you want
you're
to add new file source by application, by user interface from application, or
or by file system. Probably at the end we want to have both.
mm,
But in any case, it should be possible in the application when you look on the files you have that you say add new source, and then you're saying is this a new version of some existing semantic resource, or is it a new semantic resource? And you're adding this new semantic resource, then it's adding what is the ID system? Is it a new ID system or one of the existing? And then you're asked for the different version of the short name and the abbreviation, different language versions as it is in the new model. Then you're asked what is the market variant you want to define, and you say, okay, that's the Swiss market, or do you want to add a new market? Then you can add the markets. Then you're saying, okay, now what is the version? Then you say, okay, that's the version released on 2011, 2nd of March. And now for the actual file, where is the file? What is the language? What is the MIME type? And now what is the parser definition? Do you want to use a new one, or do you want to derive from an existing one, or do you want to create a completely new one? And then if it's a law similar to another law, you probably first try with an existing one. Then you look into the results, you see where it has problem, then you do a variant, then you adapt it. These are the typical use cases that we will have. Okay, so there's still a lot of work to do until we go there. But then on top of these use cases, okay, which are the basic use cases, we will have that you can hand change the input, and it will record that because you're not able to do the parser. Then what you can do is that you can that it is going to match the different elements of the resources with the semantic elements by the business key definition. You're going to refine the calculation of the business key definition in addition to the parsing of the pattern key. You're going to synchronize the existing semantic elements with those coming from the parsing of the concrete resources, and then you're going to have functionality to basically work through a semantic resource, seeing for all the elements whether, let's say, in the ideal case, every semantic element of a semantic resource is linking to a semantic element in the newest parsed version. Okay, and now in if in some cases it's going to an older one or it's falling apart, there should be a report saying that uh, there are so many semantic elements that don't exist in the new version, or so many that are new. Do you want to review them? And then you're having the ability to merge them to say, okay, here it's the same, but we had a typo in the title or in the numbering or whatever. And then in addition, you're going to connect. It's going through the business keys, going to connect versions from different languages and versions from different markets, and then you're going to be able to compare and see the differences. And then, for instance, if you go to one semantic element, you should see that in which markets is this existing, in which language versions, and then you can, of course, see all the descriptions side by side. And you're going to see what are the versions here, because theoretically it should be in sync, but you can never exclude that in different markets they're releasing these things in different times. Then probably we have to adapt. So let's say the French people release always 2 weeks later, but it's the same release officially. Then we probably want to have the official release date to bring them in sync. And then there should be a user interface where the cases that we decide that are not technically answerable, a lawyer comes and he decides what should be done. And then the manual corrections that we do on old versions should be proposed to be taken over in new ones. But it could be that, we resolve these problems by improving the parser. And what we should as well be able to do is, let's assume we have a certain text with a certain level of maturity of parser. We have all the version, we have all the languages. We did a lot of manual corrections, and now we developed the complete new version of the regulatory parser. We have new features in the parser. We elaborated the parser. We have a better way to define regular expression. And now all of a sudden we're able to do that. Now we should be able to redo everything from scratch and have support to go through this in a very efficient way. So you will have, it should, yeah. So it's almost infinite work if you do it right. And and I already discussed today with Jonas. I told him this piece of software, when we do it right, we can offer to any other company in the health sector that we provide them with reference data. We can do partnership where people are adding their own documents and want just the result of them having parsed. Other people want to review the results of us parsing a text because they're interested in the result. So over time, we want to set up a partnership of clients, but contributors. And at the moment, it's me and you for software engineers in Kiev. Later, my vision is we have a team of law students at the University of Kiev who works on a master thesis to parse local law text. We have a team of people doing this in India, a team of people doing this in Africa, and we're all trying out the problems, the things. We are having partner to use it for different legislation, and we're at the core of it. We're just looking on the hard cases, and we're designing new features of our parsing methodology. And the parsing methodology at the moment, it's basically in a database because it's basically just a network of regular expression. But over time, I want to transform this in a domain-specific language for defining this parser behavior. And then we are basically going to improve the features. Do you want to see the slides of a competitor of us in the financial industry?
Yeah.
Are you interested? They do
Yes.
a regulatory parser as well. I need a few minutes to find it. I sent it to Jonas at the beginning. Steinberger. So is everybody interested to see that?
Yeah, it will be great.
Yeah. So the company is called Cube Global, and it's a hugely successful It's a hugely successful regex startup from the UK. And what is amazing, they're basically doing something similar as we do. Of course, they're much further than we are. They have, it's here. I will I have two PDFs. One, two. It's just to give you some, some long-term inspiration. What we're actually working on here. So I'm going to share my screen. How do I do that here? Share my. Where's my twin? It disappeared. Where is it? Here it is. Here it is. I share my. Desktop screen 2. Here we go. Yeah. So we don't look at this. We don't look at that. We don't look at that. Okay, we look at this now. So okay, so the company is called Cube, and what they do is regulatory intelligence and regulatory change management. So as you see, they're already quite successful. They have they basically serve all the global banks and wealth managers. They cover legislation from 180 countries. So they're not just, parsing the laws from Switzerland. They're parsing the laws from 180 countries. Their customers have 2 million staff who are consuming this. So imagine we delivered to companies having 2 million people hired our elements about the laws, They do a 24/7 service for that. You can probably remember how I'm speaking constantly that we do not just the DevOps, but the business DevOps, where we try to serve this. And they're a successful RegTech. RegTech stands for Regulatory Technology Startup. So, I mean, just to show you, they're really highly successful with just an offering that's not much similar to what we do. So what do they do? So you see, they establish and maintain the visibility of all the regulation as it applies to the business. They define the rules. In addition, they establish where these documents are, in which schedules they're produced and maintained within the business and application. They do validation of controls, application of rules. So they basically look at all these things and manage it. And how do they do it? They have a regulatory monitoring and tracking. They have in the middle, they have a data lake. So we are just having an MS SQL database, but if you do it so scale, you need something much more. The rules workflow, you can think of our regulatory parser rules, but later we will have rules how to map it to the reference data and so on. And what they do is they as well work with taxonomies. They have an analytics module over it, of course. Then they have special reporting over it. And then they can customize it for the customer. And you just see they do work for huge companies. They cover it everywhere. and you see they have a maturity model where you have different levels what you could do. Okay, So you have all external obligations, all the requirements. So Jonas all the time says most of these things are requirements, what we have to do. So Jonas wants to basically treat everything that comes in as requirements. And yes, that's what they wanted to do for the client I was. And then I think that's an even, what did they wanted to do? What did they show us to here? Here they apply it to not just the reference data, but to the data in general. And you know, that's the problem. These documents that are relevant for a company as well in health, they're just getting more and more and more. And you have to manage that somehow. These are a lot of regulations that are just relevant to how you deal with data. So they're all applied to our company here. Okay? So BCBS 239, for instance, means we need to have every single element of our data under control. And that's a document with a lot of requirements that you basically have to show that you did them. So if you start reading that document as a PDF and then you have some lawyer doing his own Excel sheet and then you have an employee who works a little bit with the regulator, you're going to be very poor at the end of the day as a company. So you need a very systematic way how you take all of these are all documents in which is written what you all have to do. You know. This is the GDPR, very important. You know, it gives lots of rights of the client to the data, and you see this is just for data and finance. In medicine, it's probably even worse. How many things are here? Okay, and you see now why I want to start working with different universities worldwide, because you have a lot of things that happen in other places of the world with these legislations. So so you know when we are very far, we will be able to give a similar picture for medicine. Okay, so just to give you some impression. So the guy here, he was visiting in Zurich with the last client I was at Credit Suisse, and I'm still in contact with him. So what we try to do is we just try to do an as good as possible software, and as soon as we're far enough, we're going to try to make it an income center for the company, so that we can serve other clients anywhere. So then. Because if you do this functionality, it of course doesn't make sense to just use it locally. You can sell it as a product. I know we still have a far way to go, but I think we're on a good way, and the way we're working together is a good basis to scale that and to increase that. We at the moment we are not in a growth phase at the company. But I'm sure we go to keep your team stable. I mean, I'm just making sure that we can deliver things faster and at lower price than other teams in the company. So then like this, and then when the next big round of investment is coming in, then I'm trying to spread the approach across the company and grow the team. So yes, I think Alexei and I should spend some time as well on the use case diagrams. Agreed, Alexei?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. What about the others? Is there still something you urgently need to discuss, or can you just continue on what keeps you busy right now?
I think we can go to work now.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Then I wish you a very nice Workday. And Alexei, you and me, we can continue on the maybe continue a little bit on your document. Maybe you have a new version and start thinking about how we want to bring together use cases, class diagram, and activity diagrams.
Yeah, sure. Just wait a minute. I was trying to install the tool that you used yesterday. The tool that you
Okay. Yeah.
how it's called,
MCore.
MCore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can you
but
share
I
your
had some
screen and show
problems.
me what's happening when you try to install it?
I got a message that.
Can you show it to me?
Okay, one
Show
sec.
your.
One moment. Wait a minute. I'm just opening. I already closed the page where the.
Just redo what you did.
Yeah. One second. Let me share my screen.
Yeah.
So I.
Okay, that's typically not how you should install it.
No.
Can you go to www.montages.com? Now can you go on the download here button? Top. No. Download here. Yep. And now what does it do?
It's downloading.
Okay, yeah. Then, so this is a completely integrated built product. All you need is a Java 64. Do you have the Java 64 installed? Probably yes.
Check it out.
Yeah, that should be okay. Now, what is it? Version?
13.0.
13.2. But if sorry, I'm only in Windows. But if I say Java in my Google, the usual let me wait. Hello.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. So if I go to Java,
Okay.
it speaks about version 7 and 8, and I think the version I typically have is Java 8. And if I want, let me see if I go to my download area. Let me see whether I still have no. Yeah, and in the install document that was there, it speaks about a certain Java version. Can you go to montage.com and then on the lower there is some installation document on the lower installation instruction that
This
is
one?
yeah this docx. I'm just opening it. Desktop mcore LD installation instruction. because I'm confused by the version 13 there. So what does it tell? It tells on Windows 10 you need the current Java 64 release. Okay, I'm not saying which one. But this is, but it's typically people speak about Java Windows 64.
Yeah, I think it should be quite fresh version.
Yes,
So
I've seen, but yeah, it's typically called Java 8 Update 20 or something like this. How does this match with your 13?
Sorry, can you speak out?
Typically, they call it Java version 8 Update 20 or something like this. How do we get to this 13 in your versioning? Okay, Java downloads for all operating system. Mac OS. Recommend version 8 update 241. And then if I go on Mac OS, what does I get? I mean, I'm on a PC, it should just give me a file. It gives me a file, and that file is called JRA 8U241 Mac OS X64.
Yeah,
So how does it fit your 13?
I can see it, but I think it could be a number of a build. So
Okay.
I assume that it's still.
Okay, so we can try it out. But if you don't have this version, it will typically not run. So why don't you just try it out? So you're now starting it. Don't ask me how.
Okay, but maybe let's keep it for now and wait until it's downloaded and
Okay, yeah.
discuss. Yeah. So in general, one moment. I made some updates on a file. I would say it's not really significant.
Okay, so we can speak about user roles. Okay.
Yeah, we can
So
discuss.
private key owner, private key owner. Why is a holder? Owner versus holder. Let me understand this. So the owner manage of private facilities access control system can have these facilities parents. So we can, yeah, let me look on my own diagram on the other screen. File, switch workspace to trusted access control system. One second. Sorry, my machine is slow.
No problem.
And I have the, I still have it open. And by the way, what software are you using here to edit the document?
You mean this text document?
Yes.
It's Pages. It's analogy of Microsoft Word.
Can you please, you got a Office 364 account with your F Factory. Can you please install the normal Office and we use Word?
Okay, if it's a big deal, I can.
Yeah, you know, the thing is like this. we're building up here a company, okay? And I try to kind of spread our approach with our team over the whole company. So it's clear that if ever they write the document or do a presentation, they will use the Microsoft stack. So, so the less we are different in everything that's not interesting, like the Office stack, the more we can do novel things in the things that are interesting, like the modeling tools, the DevOps stuff, you know. So therefore, I think it's good if we are in everything that doesn't matter, we're as Microsoft oriented as possible. So we can use Teams and Outlook and Word, you know, because all these things don't matter. And then we are doing innovative stuff in all the other areas that do matter. Okay, so that's why I'm, you know, I'm. Okay, so you. So let's go to first. So you speak about. Can you go down to the roles? To the roles. To the roles. Private key owner, and then so.
One moment, I'm trying to
Yeah.
to understand what's wrong with.
With the super duper Office suite. They
Yeah.
try to open it on the cloud only. They try to not open it locally. You have to avoid that. It's in there. So
Okay, I will do it later.
later.
For now, let's park here.
Okay,
Okay.
so we has a accessed or better accessible facility. I propose I'm immediately changing in accessible because whether it's accessed or not is accessible facility. I just update the
But
MCore
where
model
you?
while we speak. I'm typing into the MCore in the diagram you see above. Okay. Now
Okay.
now we have ownership of this accessible facility and not of keys. So
Yeah.
let's think whether we need a key owner. So because yesterday we said we probably don't even need a key.
Yeah.
So we have an accessible facility. That's the door that is accessible. That's the whatever thing that I can open and close. That we said is our thing. Okay, so now we have an ownership of that, clear, and now yes, in the access right we will have keys. Okay, now
But why keys?
because you're right, private key owner.
Yeah.
You're right. I wonder whether we have to.
I think it actually is a better way to call this role would be like private facility owner.
Yeah. So why do you call it private? I mean, all
I,
our facility we call them accessible. We facility, and we have an ownership. We have access right on it. It has a state open or closed.
yeah, you're
Private. I mean, if the owner is the state, it's more like owned by the public. If the owner is you, it's more owned like private. If you know,
but how we define this like this private and public owning. Um,
yeah, you speak about the private and the public key. You know,
yeah.
true. Yes. So the a key consists of a key actually consists of the of a pair of keys.
Oh, no. Excuse me. It's not what exactly I meant. Um, what I tried to separate here is just like public and private facilities. So it's basically like my home, when I own my home, and I'm an admin here. I manage all stuff in my facility, all access to it. But
Yeah.
when we are talking about organizations, or how we called it here,
We called it regulated entity.
okay, regulated entity. Yeah, in this case, I think we need more rules, because in this case we have just me and people who access my home. But when we are talking about organization, I think it should be at least three roles, because owner who like a god who can do everything, like give access,
Yeah.
revoke access, etc., etc. I assume that organization admins also should be in place, because we need people like I don't think that it's a good idea to have one person who manages all this stuff. We have we need roles which can support him, like
Yes.
a facility manager or something like this. So we need to decentralize this management,
Yeah.
and like common users, just person who access doors. So
I understand. So now, if we reflect that, maybe let me quickly take over the screen. How can I share my uh, the bigger screen, and I move my thing here. Okay. Now let me zoom a little bit. Okay. Now, what you said is that we're basing access rights on ownership. Okay.
okay,
Now we say in the access who can access. That must be an individual. Okay. And here. It's so slow. I was not able to. Doesn't matter. It's kind of concept. Now we base it on ownership. As you said, the owner can always decide, but the for some facility, the owner could, of course, decide to give the right to manage it. Okay, you called it. How did you call it? You called it organization admin.
okay, yeah,
Okay, so we could say that for that ownership, we can add uh, one or many administrator. You know.
yeah,
So so then the company has ownership for some facility, the main door of the company, and then um, for that ownership, uh, we could have the access right administrator. So someone could have the right to have an access right, to be the access right administrator. So then if I want to base the access right on some ownership where I am the administrator, I can do it, or I can do it if I'm the owner. And the owners, they can add the administrator. So the access right administrator. So let's have this reference.
I can see just the Teams interface. I can see.
I didn't share my. Sorry, I have to. I have to share 1 second. I have to share my screen and not my Here, my desktop screen too. Now you should be able to see it.
Yeah, now I can see it.
No, it kind of. I kind of have to change the name in. Over here. So this thing here. What did it do? Doesn't have any name. It is in the ownership. Here it is. So it's we may have many of them. Okay, but that doesn't answer the question, what are our roles?
Yeah.
If we go back to the role.
I think one more thing that we need to consider while making these rules is that for organization it can be really useful to have a list of all users, where
Yes.
you can manage all users that linked to this organization or like facility, doesn't matter.
Yes, that's important.
So yeah, actually, if we can design it in a different maybe way, we can get rid of this private property like my home. I mean, we can avoid and make this role more generic.
Yeah, I think so. Yes, but
But like, we need
but
then we need to solve this problem with employees list in a different way.
yeah. So the regulated the regulated entity, of course, can have the individual can be employed by a regulated entity. Okay, you can always make it more complex. I just want to keep it simple that we have a way to speak about things. Okay, so let's just add what we said. We have the individual is having an employer, and typically this can be more than one as well. Can I not change it here? Can I change it here? Yeah. Okay, good. Now, but let's come back to the roles. Okay, so we say private key owner, private key holder, and then organization owner, organization admin.
I think we still have a need to separate private properties like property of common users and the organization and properties which connected to organizations, because like in future I assume that it would be different techniques for management, open and closing, or maybe other features.
Yes, on the other hand, if you want to do a modern system, then you basically want to make it very simple, and everybody can use any feature. You're not considering that it's expensive to do functionality, but you consider it's expensive to explain different things. So I just want to think the following: if today the organizations and the people have keys, okay?
Okay.
If you have a big house with 10 children, okay, you may have a special place where you keep all the keys, and someone has the task to maintain the keys and maintain a list who has the key. And You do it like in a company. If you're a company with just one person, you may deal with your key as you would do being alone. You just have it in your pocket. Okay? I think it shouldn't really make a difference. The ability should be here, and you should be able to make it simple or complex, independent of what you are. So
Okay.
basically, there should be the facility to do a complex, but then there should be a way to do it simple.
Okay, then we can remove first two roles and left three others.
Yeah, keep these three, maybe. But now we said that the people who are doing something in the system, they're always individuals. You know, the company is not going to log on. The company is basically it's not living. Okay.
Yeah.
So we are. So let's here. Say, so you speak about the owner of a
Yeah.
facility, and you as well, full control over all facility owned by. So it's rather facility owner. So why would the
I think facility owner.
over all owned facilities?
Yeah, I think it could be a group of facilities or.
Yeah, it's all the facilities this owner has ownership relation on, no? So over all owned facilities, and then we write owner are either individuals or regulated entities, e.g., persons in our system. So should we rename person in something more abstract, because it could be confusing with individual? It could be.
I think person is okay.
It's okay. Okay, yeah. We could write persona. It's kind of more modern.
Yeah.
I think let's quickly look it up. I think it's used in user journeys, persona, Wikipedia, user journeys, something like persona, customer journey, persona, user experience. Okay, customer persona buyer is it user market as a functional character to represent a user type that might use this output together with markets. They mean people.
Mm-hmm.
It's not they really mean people. So it's not a good name.
Let's call it you just user maybe.
No, the user can only be an individual. That's what I'm saying. An entity is not going to log on to our system. This is the generalization of the entity and the individual. So it can't be user. So it's always easy to make a complex name that's correct. So we call it a entity or individual. That's correct. In any case, we can change it later. Okay. Confusion gone. By right then, so we can leave this away. Now, the facility owner is actually not a user role. Okay. So what we have is a we had this access right administrator. So we said does only or facilities owned by individual. This role exists. And then we have the facility access right administrator. We say this role. This is the admin.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. That's a good definition. To list of abilities for this is managed by not organization owner, but facilities owner, and can be extended up to owner's rights or limited to certain facility or its. You want to have roles that are company-wide. I understand. Yeah, you. So it's not the facility access right, but it is kind of a.
Regulated entity.
So entity access right administrator. That's what you want to. List of this is managed by facilities by entity owning the facilities. And can be extended up to owner's rights, a limit to certain facility or its part. Yeah. So the entity access rights administrator. List of abilities for is managed by the entity owning the facilities and can be for which you access manager. Okay, yeah. But at least now what we have here is in sync with this. I didn't want to remove anything. So now you speak about use with this unused delete existing user edge facilities. That is maybe we need an entity, not access rights administrator, but entity.
What's the role? What?
Yeah, what can he do? Attach to current company, add new users, delete existing users, entity user administrator. So user with this role can manage access right of other employees.
But if it's private property, then there is no employees. It's just.
Yeah, but it's an entity user administrator. He does it for an entity. It's an individual that does it for an entity.
Oh, okay. You mean for a single facility?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could even say, how could we call this role? We need a role that for some entity he can say who are the employees and so on. So it's actually we could use it the entity manager can manage access right of entities employees add new employee, delete, add new, delete existing employees, add facilities. And now and give the access, the access administration okay. Now that's only for facilities owned by owner. This role can be taken directly as entities have no user account. They cannot even type in the password to entity. So, but still we have the entity can be in this role, but he has this role. It cannot be taken directly. The entity can have an entity manager and delete access and give the access admin right to other people. And then for any ownership, I can give access right administrator, and I can even do it for person things. So even an individual owning some log can now give to some individual an access right administrator right. Okay, so manage the entity owning the facility by the and is managed by the list of ability for this user is managed by the entity or individual owning the facility.
No, facility owners.
No, by the entity owning the facilities. Okay. So yeah, and then the facility owner can do everything. Our own facilities, including management of access rights and access admin rights. So if you're directly owner, you can do everything. Okay, the owner, but if you're individual, can you log in as the owner? You are actually the owner of some facility by the ownership. Okay, and then you can set an administrator with a number of rights.
But in last role, entity access rights administrator, this part is managed by entity owning the facilities. Does it mean the same as facility or owner, or it's different?
But the entity owning the facilities, yeah, it's the.
Can we replace basically with this part the entity owning the facilities with facility owner, or we can't?
No, you can, but the problem is now that by the if it's a company, it has to be the entity manager. So actually, I have to say by the entity manager. Because we speak here about rights administrator for the entity. So the ability of this user is managed by the entity manager.
Okay.
And now we as well find that this access right administrator, you said that it has to have a list of rights. And as it is now, you can just have someone being the administrator, but you wanted to basically define what are his rights. So so kind of a right level. So we need kind of a class in between, kind of the role. So kind of the so kind of on the ownership we have admin rights that then have a scope of the admin rights. So what we need is we need to have the this cannot just be an arrow, because you wrote on your own that it has a list of abilities. So this list, we have to attach it somewhere. It has to attach it to that arrow. To be able to attach it, we have to replace the arrow with a box. So let's call this box new sibling classifier. Let's call it
access rights or list.
no, an access right. We have already defined what it is. We call it a right administrator. So right admin role, and then we have the role owner being the individual. So right admin role. So how can this role defines what kind of rights you can admin? So you can say that you can give access to some other person, or you can change the people having right admin, so different levels. So we will have an enumeration that is called right admin level. And what are the levels? The first level could be to manage your, that you can give just manage your own access right. It could be that every employee here with this role can say, now I need access to this facility for 2 hours. He gets the key in these 2 hours, he can access it or not. So kind of manage own rights. Then the second level could be to give rights to others.
Sorry, but I didn't quite catch how this entity can manage
Okay, I will show. Rights. So we do here. We have a rights admin level. Yes. And now we're going to have in ownership, instead of having directly this individual, we're going to. I hope it will all. I hope my tool will be able to do that. Let me see. Let me first export it to be sure that I don't destroy anything. Okay. So instead of having directly the individual being the access right administrator, I'm going to have here a right admin role. And I'm going to, it disappeared, that's good. I'm going to I'm going to make it a containment, and then this role has a role owner. Okay. And I'm going to have a reference, and then this role is owned by some individual, and it's the owner. Okay, now the levels can be either manage your own right, give rights to others. The next level would be manage own right. No, manage right admin level. So for other people who have already admin rights, manage their levels. So you could say that, some secretary, even not having not own rights, just gets this right to manage it, or you can even add right. So add new right administrators, even give the right to others. So then And the idea is that this roll, unfortunately, it will not draw. Oh no, it will draw the arrows. It's always better than I think. It's made in Russia. It's yeah, true. It's the guy who did it is called Mikhail Golubev. The company who developed the technology was called Together. It's one of the most famous Russian IT company. They did leading UML tools, and they were bought by Borland.
Oh, yeah, I see.
So it's these are really some of the best Russian engineers who were involved here. So whenever it works, and I'm surprised, I have to give them credits. It's, yeah, because there was not enough testing of it, and kind of lost the budget. So okay, you see now we have the ownership has right admin roles where the yeah, and I should be able to even add this to the diagram. Yeah, and then I even can hide this department because it's now. Oh no, this I don't want to show, but here I can even, you know, these two are redundant now. So I can, you know, the owner individual, we have already the arrow.
Okay.
And for the right admin, we have an arrow as well, so I don't need to show these two. So whenever they are redundant, I'm not showing them. And then, by the way, if an arrow is just called the same as the, if an arrow is just called the same as the type, right admin level, it's redundant as well. And you see actually here in my role, I'm not giving this name. The name is empty. Okay. So this information as well is kind of redundant. So I can say a format. No, I can say format. No filter. No connector label. And then I can even keep that wording here by saying that the right. Sorry?
No, it's okay. Yeah.
Okay, anyhow, we just wanted to clarify your role terms. Let's go back there. I have to close the window, sorry. Too loud. I forgot to drink, so I need a few seconds. So what did we say? We have the now, of course, the access rights administrator is now a guy. Oh, sorry, I'm confused. So the entity manager can now the entity manager can now manage access right of entities, add new employees, and so on. So why not? I destroyed the nice picture. Let me move this. This one can be smaller.
But why did you merge these two arrows between ownership and accessibility, accessible facility?
No, I merged these two arrows because they're opposite of each other. You look between ownership and access facility. This one, and I show you. I just answer your question. So I merged arrows. So there's ownership, and where is it? Accessible facility. So the ownership arrow here.
Yeah.
Has here. Ah no, it doesn't have the, and the owned. They should be opposite of each other. They're not. I forgot it, but I can add it. You know, I thought it's already opposite of each other. You now see they're opposite of each other. That's why I merged the arrow. Two arrows that are opposite of each other are actually one bidirectional arrow.
Okay, yeah, now I understand. Okay.
But I forgot it in the model, so now I corrected it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, but what I wanted to add is, I mean, of course, in the regulated entity, I want to change the entity name. And actually, yeah, okay. We can refine later. Here it's only to be clear about terminology. Actually, we said that the regulated entity has an owner. I think I can do this here. A manager, we said. This we call manager. You remember in the word text, and we said it's even. Here I can do it 0. By the way, these do actions, you understand what they're good for?
No, actually no.
Okay, I explain you. If you design something, you have model, view, control. Okay? So the model is quite obvious. It's the domain model behind the tool. Okay? We have classes, attributes, references. That's the model. The view is as well quite clear. The view is this, on one hand, this tabular view. On the other hand, we have this diagrammatic view. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, what is the control? The control is these do actions. So the do action give you at every situation the most likely things to do. Okay.
Yeah.
So we are our control model is that we define for every object in our tooling a set of most useful activities. And these are the do actions. So the actions starting with an arrow are a transformation of the object. So for instance, I'm transforming this 0 to 1 relation to a 0 to star relation. Okay.
So basically, it means 0 to many or no.
Yes, but I did it as a do action. Normally, what I would have had to do is I would have to have selected this arrow, and then I would have to select what kind of property I'm changing. Do I change the name, the short name, the simple type, whether it's changeable, the multiplicity, whether it's persisted, the property behavior, the description, blah, 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 blah. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, instead of giving you 20 properties, I have to change in this property view. That would be one control possibility. I'm saying I give everywhere a do action with the most useful thing, so I can make it contained.
Okay, but what means string attribute, boolean flag, integer attribute? I understand
I can explain you. So everything with an arrow means I will transform it. So making it contain means I make this feature a containment feature, tree structure. Making it derive means it will be calculated. Making it an operation means it will have parameter. It's no more a reference, but a method. Making it 0 to 1 means I make it unary. Making it a string attribute means I will change its type from individual to string. Making it a Boolean flag means I will change its type into Boolean. Making it an integer attribute means I will change its type into integer. Now, init value means I'm giving a calculation rule to initialize its value. Init order means I'm adding a calculation in which order I will do the initialization of the fields of this class. Construct choice means I'm constructing with a calculation rule the available choices for this reference. Constraint choice means I give a constraint that is restricting the available choices. Highlight means I'm giving a calculation rule if it is evaluating in true, it will make this field red in the generated editor. Hide in properties view means that in the generated editor, this property will not show up in such a property. Hide in table editor means it will not show up in this table. Move to new group means I will do, I will do a new group of properties. Add update annotation means I will give it the dynamic semantics. So when I update this property, I will as well update others. So these are all the useful things you can do, which normally will take you a number of steps or will need that you know which property to do. So the do actions are our control paradigm, that every element of your tool, you have the useful things. So the cool thing is now I was able to trigger the do action here, okay? I'm able to trigger the do action, where is it? No, I hided it here. So with this, I can show everything hided, and then it would come out here with the do action, okay? So I basically hide everything that's not needed down here because I have it. But I can go to the very same manager link we added. Let's remember why we added the manager link. We added it because we said there is an entity manager.
Yeah.
Okay. No, go back. The manager link I can have do here, or I can go over here, and then my regulated entity has a manager, and I can have the very same do action here, and it will do exactly the same.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's a unique way to do control that you can trigger out of the tabular view or out of the diagrammatic view.
Yeah.
And there are some mad things, like if you go to a class and you go into the do action, you can, of course, transform the class into an abstract class, okay? But you can add a property, a group in the properties, a constraint, a label. You can instantiate the class. You can abstract it. That instantiate means we are going to create an object being an instance of that class. Abstract means you're going to create an abstract superclass of it and move all the behavior and all the fields of this class in the abstract superclass. Specialize means you're going to create the concrete subclass. Okay, then you can add string attributes, Boolean attributes, int attributes. You can add references, containments, operations, parameters. You can complement the semantics. So if we are, I really don't want to mess up our model, but normally if you want to try out things, you're just putting plus, then you get your standard example. Okay, and in the standard example, and you see, our problem is performance. This is a fast i7 machine, and it just takes some time to create the standard example. So now this is the standard example. And now, in order to do demos, we can do it bigger. Now, what can we do in a class? Okay, as I said, we can abstract the class. So first of all, what you have to see is if I add a second class, okay, it is not only adding the class, but it is adding a containment feature. Why is it doing that? Because if you would not have the containment, if you're executing the model, you cannot create the instances. So if I have here my editor, okay, I still have only the class 0. I can reset my editor and I can immediately run my model dynamically. And now I can explain this, why it added this containment on the example, because now I can immediately say new child class 1. I can say new child class 1, and I can say this is, by the way, object 2 and object 3. And when I close the whole thing and I save it, these objects are re-injected in my model. And I can show you the very same example objects here, okay? 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
And what I can do now is it has this position. I can go to my classes. I can call this, to make it clear, text 0. And then in the table, I can change the labels of things. I can here, it's now automatically showing the column for the text 0, but I could change the label in 0, and here in class 1, the text 1, I can change it in 1. And then if I re-trigger it again, it will show it to me. And the cool thing is now I can now go here and say, do me another object. Okay. And I can say this object, by the way, has the value 4 now. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I can as well, inside here, I can improve it slightly by saying for class 0, I want to show the text 0. And for class 1, I want to show the text 1. And now you see it changed to something more useful. So I can make it even more compact here. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But if I go back to my generated editor, now the class, the things I had are re-injected. So it's basically showing the more specific editor. So I added the 4. It's here now, and I changed the labels.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now I quickly wanted to show you a few of these actions. So if I say here, I mean, these are all easy. For instance, I add a group of constraint. Okay, now I have a group, and in this group I can add the Boolean attribute, and then by default the things in the groups are not shown in the table editor, and I can subgroups like this. I can have hundreds of attributes with the grouping. Okay, what else can I do? I can add a constraint. I can add a label. So with the label, I can. But more interesting is I can now instantiate it, my class, and if I instantiate it, what will it do? It will add me another instance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I would have to explain you where to instantiate it. But instead of this, you get this action instantiate, and you see what happens. Okay. Now let me abstract the class. I said it will do an abstract superclass and implement it. Okay. So let's abstract it. So what did it do? It did a class 1 abstraction that has a text 1 and group, and it does a class 1 implementing it. Okay. Now this abstraction, I can say specialize. Okay. And now it does a class 1 subtype 2. Okay. And I can call this abstract class 1. And then I can call this class 1 impl 1, 1 and impl 2. Okay. So this is actually everything that after you did 3 years of study doing object-oriented programming, you're doing is in these actions. Okay, so now let's see else what we can do. We can say we can add the attributes, or we can complement the semantics. What is complement the semantics? It is in this abstract class, I could go and say that I'm adding a string attribute which is derived. So I say make it derived. And then it's adding a semantics part for text to the derivation. So now I can say in the derivation I take not 0 but self dot, let's say the text 1, and I call this thing text 1 clone. Okay. Now in this subclass, I can say complement semantics, and now everything that I inherited, it will create me something to override. So for the text 1 clone, I was able to override the result. So for instance, I can say here, I just want to have the empty string. Now this one, since it is stored, I can just initialize its value. I think I I'm not sure whether I can transform it into data constant. No. Yeah, it was able. So I have a constant, and then the constant I write text one in it. Okay, and so on. So just to give you some example, I didn't want to play around with this one, because this one we just do to get our terminology right. So delete from diagram. We wanted to have this, and actually we just wanna progress on. Okay. Now the entity manager, now you store it here, and then if you have this role, then you can manage access right of entities, employees, add new employee, delete existing, add facilities, give the access administration right to other people. Now the entity access rights administrator, that's actually now a right admin role that is owned by an individual, and then you have different levels what you can do here. Okay.
To me, it was some connectivity problems from my side.
Some?
I dropped from a call for a while. It was some connectivity problems.
Yeah, don't worry. I think we have some useful roles. We added a new status of this.
Yes.
So this one we covered it.
We can delete.
Yeah, the common user, we can call it
accessor, maybe. No.
No, here it's now the. Yeah, we called it facility accessor. So that's any user that is going to do an access. That using some device, using some access right. Yes, and we can write that the accessor is doesn't have any management rights, yes, and access certain doors, and bounded to accessing certain facility defined by the actual access rights given to the accessor, because the accessor actually is this is going to be stored by this reference. So
sorry, which reference? I didn't
this one,
see.
the one from access right to individual. So the access right for some individual is based on some ownership and includes certain keys.
Okay, yeah.
And has an accessed facility. So hopefully probably the accessed facility could be just the facility, the owned facility by the ownership. So yeah, so we could define that the access, yeah. So anyhow, like this, it's do we have organization admin, organization owner is set by, what are our roles? The organization admin is the entity access right administrator, and the entity manager or the facility owner directly in case of an individual owning the facility. That's what you call private.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So I think now these user roles are in sync with our model. So what we do now is I'm saving this as version 2.0. What is the date today?
Tuesday, 18th
No,
of February.
18th. Okay, because when what I want to do here as last thing is I wanna so first I want to do the access facility. I want to make it derived from based on and owned. Okay, so this access here, the access right, it's in the access right. Where is the access right? Access right. It's here. The access, I make it derived, and I define it as self, and then I go on based on and owned. Based on, I go to the ownership, and then the owned. Okay. Now the second thing I want to do is I want to you know, the editor as it is just having one table. You see that? With one text one.
Yeah.
So if I'm saying here reset editor, it's basically reflecting our whole domain model. It starts with a trusted access control system that has entity or individual, accessible facility, ownership, access rights, key access, user interface devices. It has a table for entity or individual that has then abstract texts. Looks like this is not so good. Entity or individual, entity or
Is there
individual.
here?
This one, it's not needed. So let me delete it. Yeah, we have a number of these text one and things like this. So we should quickly go through. This is not needed. So yeah, the problem is if user interface device, I don't need text one. I don't need text two here. Actually here, what will happen is if I just remove this text two, it will think it's a data type now because it can't. Oops, what happened? I just removed the text too. No, because it has a super type, it still knows that it is a class. Okay, let me just remove all the unneeded text fields. This will just make us lose time. It's not many of them. Okay, then then we reset the editor, so they will all go away automatically. Okay, entity or individual. Yeah. Now I would like to change the containment structure by not having entities and individual mixed. So I'm deleting that containment and I'm adding one for individual and one for entity. Another one, containment. I'm going to make one for individual. Where is it? Here. And one for entity, regulated entity. Now it did some magic here that's not needed. I'm simply deleting it. That is good for. Then I'm going to. Yeah, I'm going to store everything because it got out of sync with what we have here. I'm going to delete everything. I'm going to reset the table once again. Here, reset editor, and I'm going to try it out, and then I'm going to send it to you. And I'm as well adding the new screenshot. Then we are closing the session. Then you can play with it.
Yeah, I will first. Okay, what would be my next steps? I assume that now I can, since we have all role defined and pretty much behavior defined, should I start with use cases?
I would like you to do the following. I mean, use cases will be nothing else than a little picture with the roles and the name of the activity. But what is this? Let me try to save some work so we don't lose it. So this one we don't want to have in the diagram. Okay, then okay, it's gone. Now then, it's almost not readable here. Do I have to change to make it readable? I probably have to. And I don't want to spend too much time, but I probably have to. Give it a little more space here. And then this guy can be here. Because I just tried to create the useful screenshot. That goes here. Now it's quite readable, isn't it? Don't need to do much more.
No, it's look okay. Maybe just
That's fine.
the bottom right facility state is a bit overlapping by close.
Yes, it is. But it's kind of. I mean, what we can do is when we say here, we show the properties. And here we show the properties. But there are so many. Yeah, but some of them like. Now we don't need to have that in the diagram anymore. And we can basically use device, use the access file. Now it's easier to read. Accessor. The owner of the role. This one is kind of redundant. So now I think it's good, isn't it?
Yeah, now it looks better.
Now it looks better. So we add the screenshot to the Word document, we save it again, and I want to just that we have new. Duck.
By the way, how this word you mentioned it multiple times is translated this duck or
How the?
yeah, does it mean something or is just because we have in Russian we have exactly the same word actually, and
Which one? Which word?
Duck.
Duck. Ah.
You did it like this.
Just,
Duck.
Yeah, that was just like done. It's so somehow what I'm not happy is that somehow it doesn't execute. Why does it not execute? It's somehow trusted access control system reset editor. Why did it not? I definitively need somehow I didn't. The editor doesn't work. I have to find out why. I will find out on my own. But I still give you the export so you can play with it.
Yeah.
Dynamic editor doesn't work. So now the nice thing is we can just drag it out. Okay. It will appear here. After doing some calculations. And now I can take my email and I can say Alex, and we decided to only use our S factory emails.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's about being, the more we're compliant, the more we can be the role model in the group of company. Then we're that in, and we're, can I put this in? No, I cannot not track this in. It's stupid system. We have to desktop as factory trusted access control system version. No, this I cannot drag in. Yeah. By the way, that was why I called the version 220.02.18 because this one as well has 220.02.18 in it, so we can keep them together.
Okay, yeah, it makes sense.
If I would have called it 0.2, we could not have kept it together.
Yeah, you're right.
We continued. Okay, so I have to see who's all crying and do other things. And can you please do the following? In UML2, there are so-called activity diagrams.
Okay, yeah, I know.
Okay. And in UML, there are so-called profiles.
Sorry, in UML profile?
They are so-called profiles. A profile is the extension mechanism in UML. And so with the extension mechanism, you can take any UML model and make it your special own model. Now, the BPMN, the Business Process Meta Notation standard, it created a profile over activity diagram to do processes inside UML. Okay.
Okay, so I search for PTMN standard?
So you should understand what the activity diagrams are exactly, how they relate to Petri nets, how the profile mechanism in UML works, and how the profile mechanism UML is used to define a BPMN profile over activity diagram, and how you can create business process in a UML tool by doing actually activity diagram with a BPMN profile.
Okay, please, can you spell it for me one more time? BPMN?
So BPMN2 actually, so the business process meta notation 2 is the OMG standard to define business processes. UML2 is the OMG standard to define models of IT systems, frankly said. Okay? Now, the UML2 has something called profiles. It is in order to extend the UML2 facilities.
Okay.
And the profiles were used to define a BPMN profile over UML activity diagram.
Okay, I think
Please go and educate yourself about all of these topics, because what we try to do is we're going to use a UML tool, and we're going to use a profile to define BPMN diagrams as profiled activity diagrams. And like this, we can fulfill both Jonas' requirement to have activity diagrams and the regulator's requirement to have a documentation of the processes.
Okay.
So these are the deep topics we will work on. Having as well a class model, having as well a use case diagram, this is then the easy part. So I as well try to find some time to look on the tooling, whether it can do that. Yeah.
But let me search for it and get back to you.
You know, other people study this for a whole year at the university, so don't expect to be very fast. It's
okay, because I was actually I wanted to ask you, what if I will finish with it earlier today? What should I do next?
it's you know, it's typically what you would cover in a full year lecture on master level in a very good computer science industry, so university. So there's no risk you will finish it today.
Okay, I see. Okay, then I will. Then I will
Don't worry.
Really good times with it.
Yeah. Okay. So then I wish you a very nice afternoon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
One more question. So sorry for holding you. And now things become like more faster, and we are more in control of everything. Like, I mean, me and you especially, because like before this, I felt like separated because you was working with guys and less with me. And I can see that you like have other habits to do, and maybe I can help you somehow with your like your duties, maybe with your stuff in terms of our guys, or especially.
Yeah, I mean, basically what you can do is everything you learned and you can do, you're sharing with the others, because we use the same methodologies as well for the others.
Okay.
You know, we're working intensively with the MCore tool, and at the moment we're not defining the use cases and the roles for the regulatory parser, but we will have as well. And then of course the idea is that we do it in the very same way. And then the idea is that you learn from each other, and I'm not going to tell everyone separately.
Yeah, then it makes sense.
You know, it's also, it looks like two different projects. It will be one methodology and one approach.
Yeah.
And it's so don't feel separated. I just, you know, I just had to give priority to the others because they were working for over half a year on a piece of software that Jonas did not have enough time, so I had kind of to save that main part. But otherwise, we were all equal in the team, and it's just good that you know you work actually on a part of the software that is more fundamental for the company. So whenever you know Jonas should run out of money for the regulatory parser, we will take over the others and work in your area. because in your area they will need many developers.
Okay.
So it's important that you keep in the loop for what you do now, because that's the core of what the company provides, whereas the regulatory parser is kind of a sideline.
Okay, I see. And by the way, I talked to my friend who is a beta developer, and he's thinking right now, will he be able, because he is not really sure right now, but actually he is interested in this opportunity. But he told me that he will give his answer a bit later.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
So I have to really run. I have another.
Okay, sure. Have a nice
I have
day.
to call
See you.
someone whom I should have met, and I let him.
Yeah.
Okay, bye. Bye.
Ja, Business-Analyse machen soll. Jetzt habe ich mein Team in der Ukraine mit 4 Leuten und ich muss die jeden Tag busy halten und es sind immer viele Sachen jetzt bei mir gelandet. Ich habe so einen Chef, der ziemlich overhead, der kommt 1000 Sachen zusammen. Ja. Ja, was machst du? Willst du? Ich kann irgendwo hinkommen. Ich habe ja, wann wärst du dort? Ich bin beim Bahnhof. Kann man alles an der Landstraße? Ist das richtig? Ah ja, da kann ich auf T4. Ja, da bin ich in ungefähr 10 Minuten. Ja.